Steve McQueen was more than just an actor, he was a symbol of toughness, a figure who defined what it meant to be cool. With his iconic role in movies like Bullitt and The Great Escape, McQueen became a legend, a man whose on-screen persona was matched only by his off-screen reputation for rebellion and independence. But as much as he became an icon of strength and courage, McQueen also had his vulnerabilities. His career was filled with intense moments, both on and off set, and one of the most intriguing parts of his life is how he handled the complex relationships he formed with others, especially his co-stars. It is widely known that McQueen had a hard time getting along with everyone. He was known for being fiercely independent and at times difficult to work with. It's not that he was a villain or that he was intentionally rude, he was just someone who was fiercely committed to his craft and wasn't afraid to speak his mind. His desire to control his environment and the way he worked on set was often a point of tension. And with the fame that came with his popularity, McQueen wasn't just dealing with regular co-stars, he was often working with other major stars who were also known for their egos and strong personalities. Despite McQueen's fame, there were some actors who seemed to rub him the wrong way. It was in the midst of all this success, power and ego where McQueen's own frustrations began to surface. McQueen's career, while full of big hits, also came with its fair share of challenges. His relationships on set were rarely simple, and that's where the drama behind the scenes unfolded. And it wasn't just about the roles or the way the films were shot. McQueen, as talented as he wasn't always easy to work with. Now, you might be wondering, what was it that made McQueen's relationship with one particular co-star so intense? Was it a personality clash? Did something happen on set that created the tension? The answer is more complicated than it seems. The truth is, McQueen's dislike of this co-star wasn't just about differences in opinion or small issues that could easily be brushed aside. It was something much deeper, something that affected their working relationship in a way that shocked many. McQueen's life was filled with moments of high drama, not just on screen but off it too. His love for fast cars, his rebellious nature, and his struggle to fit in with the Hollywood elite all added up to make him a complicated figure. Hollywood wasn't always kind to him. He wasn't the typical good guy actor everyone loved, and it often made him stand out in ways that weren't always flattering, but it also made him relatable to fans who admired his raw, unfiltered persona. As a man who was used to being in control, McQueen found himself in uncomfortable situations when he had to work with people who didn't share his views or respect his boundaries. The movie industry in the 60s and 70s was filled with larger-than-life figures, and many of these stars had their own visions of how things should be. This often led to conflicts between McQueen and the people he worked with, especially when it came to the co-stars who shared the spotlight with him. McQueen was also not one to back down from a challenge. He wasn't the kind of actor who would shy away from confrontation or let things slide if something bothered him. In fact, McQueen's personality often clashed with the stars he worked with, leading to bitter moments on set. But it wasn't just about a disagreement over how a scene should be filmed. This particular co-star, someone who seemed to be constantly on McQueen's radar, did something that pushed him beyond his limits. The thing about McQueen is that he had a unique way of dealing with his feelings. He didn't always voice his frustrations openly, but those who worked closely with him knew when things weren't right. And this tension between McQueen and his co-star wasn't something that could be easily overlooked. The tension was real, and it affected the way McQueen worked and how he felt about the whole experience of making films. His life off set, which was already filled with its own set of challenges, became even more complicated because of the relationship with this one co-star. This wasn't just about the usual actor disagreements over minor things. This was personal, and it left a mark on McQueen's life. His reputation for being a tough, no-nonsense guy was only part of the story. Behind closed doors, McQueen struggled with the emotions that came from working with someone he couldn't stand. And that struggle was part of what made his life both fascinating and tragic. He wasn't just fighting to be the best on screen, he was fighting personal battles that many didn't see. So what happened between McQueen and this co-star? What was it that made their working relationship so difficult? That's the question many have asked. The truth is, we may never know all the details, but what is clear is that this co-star was a significant part of McQueen's life, and not in a way anyone would expect. The power of this relationship and the fallout from it changed McQueen in ways that could be felt throughout his career. This wasn't just a simple co-star disagreement, it was something that shaped his experiences in Hollywood. As we dig deeper into McQueen's life, we begin to see just how much of an impact this particular co-star had on him. It was one of those Hollywood stories that remained largely untold for years, and now, as time passes, we are left wondering just what happened between them. The mystery surrounding McQueen's personal and professional life is one of the reasons he remains such an intriguing figure to this day. It's easy to think of McQueen as the cool guy who always had it together, but the truth is, his life was filled with more than just action-packed movie scenes. It was filled with the complexities of being an icon, a man trying to live up to the high expectations of the world, while also dealing with his own inner conflicts. And this co-star, they were part of that story, a part that many may not have realized, but one that is integral to understanding the full picture of McQueen's incredible yet difficult life. Steve McQueen's life was full of challenges, but one of the most difficult parts for him wasn't the danger of the movie stunts or the pressure of fame, it was the tension he experienced with certain people he worked with. McQueen wasn't just a movie star, he was a man with a strong personality and a deep need for control. In an industry that thrives on egos and competition, this made it harder for him to get along with others. He was used to being the center of attention, but that didn't mean he always enjoyed sharing the spotlight. Despite being one of the biggest stars of his time, McQueen often found himself at odds with some of his co-stars. It wasn't just about minor disagreements on set, some of these conflicts went much deeper. His strong-willed nature and fierce independence didn't always sit well with others, especially when it came to working alongside people who were just as successful and opinionated as he was. One of the most intriguing aspects of McQueen's career was his ability to hide his true feelings from the public. On screen, he was the cool, collected action hero, the man who always knew what to do. But behind the scenes, McQueen struggled with relationships, both personal and professional. He had an ability to shut out his emotions when needed, but it wasn't always enough to keep the tension from building up. There were many stories about McQueen's difficult relationships with co-stars. However, the one that stands out the most was with a particular actor. This wasn't just another celebrity clash, it was something that truly affected McQueen's mood and his approach to work. It wasn't just about the usual on-set disagreements like how a scene should be filmed or whether a line was delivered properly. This was a situation where McQueen genuinely couldn't stand this person, and the tension between them was so thick it could be felt by everyone around them. The question that many have asked over the years is what happened between McQueen and this particular co-star. What was it that created such a strong sense of dislike? At first glance, this co-star might seem like an unlikely candidate for McQueen's anger, but the reality was far more complicated. McQueen, known for his own rebellious nature, was often irritated by the attitudes and behavior of others who didn't see eye to eye with him. And this co-star, they were a perfect match for conflict with McQueen in ways that might surprise many. At the heart of the issue was a deep sense of professional rivalry. While McQueen was known for his tough guy image, he also had an intense desire to be recognized for his talent and hard work. This co-star, however, was often seen as a rival in the eyes of the public. Both actors were big stars, and while McQueen may have respected this person's acting ability, the competition between them created friction. Hollywood is a place where fame often leads to ego clashes, and McQueen's ego was as big as anyone's. But it wasn't just the competition that led to the animosity between McQueen and his co-star. There were other factors at play, things that went beyond the public image. McQueen, despite his fame, was a deeply private man. He didn't like to share his personal life with others, and he was especially sensitive about certain aspects of his career. The tension with his co-star was not just about professional jealousy, it also had to do with personal boundaries that McQueen felt were being crossed. One of the most curious aspects of this situation is how McQueen handled the tension. He didn't often open up about his feelings, and when he did, it was rarely in public. The public persona he had carefully crafted over the years was one of toughness and confidence, but behind the scenes, McQueen was a man dealing with the same frustrations and insecurities that anyone might experience in a high-pressure environment. His dislike for this co-star went far beyond a simple disagreement. It was something that weighed heavily on him. It's important to note that McQueen's life was filled with many ups and downs. While he was a huge success in Hollywood, he also had personal struggles that affected the way he interacted with others. He wasn't just dealing with the pressures of fame, he was also grappling with his own inner demons. His issues with this co-star were just one piece of a much bigger puzzle. McQueen's life was complicated, and his relationships with others reflected that complexity. The question that people keep asking is what made this co-star different from the others McQueen worked with. Why did the tension between them seem so much more intense? The truth is, the reasons are still somewhat unclear. Some say it was the clash of personalities, two strong-willed people who could never see eye to eye. Others suggest that it had more to do with the co-star's behavior on set, perhaps an attitude or a way of working that McQueen couldn't stand. The public may never know all the details of what went down between McQueen and this co-star. However, what we do know is that it was a relationship that marked McQueen's career in a significant way. It wasn't just about a fight over a movie scene or a difference of opinion. This was something that lasted longer than a typical Hollywood feud. It was a conflict that seemed to affect McQueen on a personal level. And in a career where personal feelings often took a backseat to professionalism, that was saying something. The mystery surrounding McQueen's relationship with this co-star adds to the allure of his life story. McQueen was the kind of person who was hard to figure out. He was a legend on screen, but off-screen, he was a man with flaws, struggles, and complicated relationships. The tension with his co-star only deepened the intrigue around McQueen, turning what could have been just another Hollywood drama into a fascinating and mysterious part of his legacy. For many fans and those who worked with McQueen, his relationship with this particular co-star remains one of the great untold stories of Hollywood. The details may be murky, but the curiosity around what happened between these two stars continues to grow. Why did McQueen feel so strongly about this co-star? What was it about their relationship that made it so unique and unforgettable? The answers may remain hidden in the shadows, but the curiosity surrounding it is unlikely to fade anytime soon. Steve McQueen's career was filled with challenges, but one of the most fascinating aspects of his life was his relationship with the people he worked with. McQueen wasn't just a tough guy on screen, he was also someone who had a lot of strong opinions about the way things should be done. He had a reputation for being difficult to work with, and it wasn't just because of his acting style. McQueen's personality was such that he often clashed with co-stars, directors, and anyone who tried to tell him what to do. Over the years, McQueen became known for his rebellious nature. He was someone who didn't like to follow the rules, and that sometimes led to friction on set. But while many of these conflicts were about work-related issues or creative differences, the tension with one particular co-star went much deeper. It wasn't just a simple case of two strong-willed people butting heads. There was something more personal, something that made this particular co-star stand out as the one McQueen truly couldn't stand. For many years, people have been trying to figure out what exactly happened between McQueen and this co-star. What was it that made their relationship so tense? At first, it seemed like just another case of Hollywood rivalry, but as the story unfolded, it became clear that there was much more to the situation. The animosity between McQueen and this co-star wasn't just about egos or a difference of opinion, it was something that ran much deeper. The tension started to build over time. McQueen, as talented as he was, had a difficult time working with people who didn't share his vision. He was used to being in control of every situation, and when that control was challenged, it caused frustration. In the case of this co-star, McQueen found himself constantly at odds with someone who seemed to undermine his authority on set. It wasn't just about the usual disagreements that happened between actors, this was a much more personal conflict. As the relationship between McQueen and his co-star grew more strained, it became clear that this wasn't going to be just another short-term conflict. The tension between them was so strong that it affected their performances and the overall atmosphere on set. People who worked with them started to notice that something wasn't right. McQueen, who was known for his ability to keep things cool on set, was visibly frustrated whenever this co-star was around. It was clear that the tension wasn't just a passing phase, it was something that was affecting McQueen on a deeper level. The question everyone wanted to know was why. What was it that made McQueen react so strongly to this particular actor? Was it a personality clash? Or was there something else at play? The answer is still not entirely clear, but what we do know is that this wasn't just another run-of-the-mill Hollywood feud. McQueen was someone who didn't easily let his emotions show, but when it came to this co-star, it was impossible to ignore the friction. There was something about this actor that got under McQueen's skin in a way that no one else had. For McQueen, being on set wasn't just about acting, it was about the overall experience of making a film. He wanted to be surrounded by people who respected him and his vision, and when that respect wasn't there, it created tension. McQueen wasn't the type of person who would just smile and accept being treated poorly. He wasn't afraid to stand up for himself, and that's exactly what happened when this co-star crossed the line. The conflict was personal, and it went beyond just professional disagreements. It was about mutual respect, or the lack of it. As time went on, McQueen's frustration with this co-star only grew. The more he worked with this person, the more the tension built. This wasn't just about getting along with someone on set, it was about dealing with someone who in McQueen's eyes didn't deserve the same level of respect he expected from his colleagues. It was clear that McQueen wasn't going to back down, and neither was this co-star. The result was a toxic environment that made working together nearly impossible. It wasn't just the tension that made their relationship so memorable, it was also the way McQueen handled it. He wasn't someone who liked to show weakness, especially in front of others. He kept his emotions in check for the most part, but when it came to this co-star, McQueen couldn't hide his feelings. It was obvious to everyone on set that something was wrong. McQueen's ability to stay cool under pressure seemed to falter whenever this particular actor was around. This wasn't just a minor annoyance, it was a real problem that had a lasting impact on their working relationship. But even with all the tension, McQueen never fully revealed what had caused the rift between him and this co-star. There were rumors, of course, and speculation about what had gone down behind closed doors, but no one knew for sure. McQueen was always a private person, and he wasn't one to openly discuss his personal issues with the press. So the details of what happened between him and this co-star remain shrouded in mystery. What is clear, however, is that this was one of the most significant conflicts in McQueen's career. It wasn't just another Hollywood feud, it was a relationship that left a lasting mark on McQueen's life. The tension with this co-star affected McQueen in ways that many people didn't fully understand at the time. His frustration and anger were visible to those around him, and it became a part of his legacy. The mystery surrounding McQueen's relationship with this co-star has only added to the intrigue of his life story. People are still curious about what really happened between them and why the relationship became so tense. What was it about this co-star that made McQueen react so strongly? Was it a matter of personality differences, or was there something more personal involved? The truth is still elusive, but the curiosity surrounding it continues to grow. McQueen's life was full of fascinating stories, but the conflict with this particular co-star stands out as one of the most mysterious chapters in his career. In the end, McQueen's relationship with this co-star serves as a reminder that even the biggest stars have their struggles. They may be larger-than-life figures on screen, but behind the scenes they are just like anyone else, dealing with personal conflicts and professional challenges. McQueen's story is one of success, but it's also a story of human flaws, struggles, and the complexity of relationships in the world of Hollywood. There are few things more intriguing than the complicated world of Hollywood. It's a place where dreams are made, but it's also where the darker side of fame can have a huge impact on personal relationships. Steve McQueen, known for his tough guy image and unparalleled acting talent, was no stranger to this world. While he captured the hearts of millions of fans with his cool demeanor and daring roles, behind the scenes, his relationships with some of his co-stars were far from smooth. McQueen wasn't the type of person who got along with everyone. He was a man of strong opinions, and he didn't always hold back when it came to expressing those opinions. His career was filled with both successes and conflicts, and one of the most fascinating aspects of his life was his struggle to get along with certain people in the industry. He wasn't just a movie star, he was a man with a big ego, and like many stars, that often led to tension with others. The conflict with one particular co-star, however, was more than just a typical Hollywood rivalry. It went beyond minor disagreements or different working styles. This was something that was deeply personal for McQueen, and the more time passed, the stronger the tension grew. But what was it that made this co-star so different from the others McQueen worked with? What was it about this actor that made McQueen react with such intensity? To understand the root of this conflict, it's important to look at McQueen's personality. While he was an incredible talent, he also had a strong need for control. McQueen wasn't one to just show up on set and follow directions. He was involved in every aspect of his films, and often made decisions about how his character should be portrayed. He wanted to be in charge, and he wasn't afraid to push back against anyone who challenged his vision. This made him a bit of a lone wolf in Hollywood, someone who often clashed with directors and co-stars alike. When it came to this particular co-star, McQueen found himself constantly frustrated. This wasn't a case of simple personality differences or creative disagreements. McQueen had a deep-seated dislike for this actor, and it wasn't just about professional rivalry. It was personal. The animosity between them grew so strong that it became clear to everyone on set that something serious was going on. The other cast members, the directors, and even the crew could see that McQueen was having a hard time working with this individual. But what made this co-star so special in McQueen's mind? What was it that pushed him to the point of frustration? There are many theories, of course. Some people believe that McQueen's reaction to this co-star had to do with their different approaches to acting. McQueen, known for his raw and intense style, may have seen this co-star as someone who was trying to steal the spotlight or act in a way that didn't fit McQueen's vision. There's also the possibility that the co-star's behavior on set rubbed McQueen the wrong way. Hollywood is a place where egos clash, and McQueen's was just as big as anyone's. He wasn't the type of person who would back down if he felt someone was undermining him. But the tension between McQueen and this co-star went beyond simple creative differences. It was a clash of personalities, a battle for dominance that made it almost impossible for them to work together without friction. For McQueen, the presence of this co-star seemed to bring out the worst in him. His calm and controlled demeanor, so carefully crafted for the public, would often crack whenever this particular actor was around. It was as if the very presence of this person challenged McQueen's authority and sense of self. What made this situation even more intriguing was the fact that McQueen didn't often let his emotions show. He was a man known for his ability to keep a cool head in even the most dangerous of situations. On set, he was usually calm and focused, always delivering his best performance. But when it came to this co-star, things were different. McQueen couldn't hide his feelings, and it became clear that their relationship was affecting not only his work but his personal state of mind as well. But despite the growing tension, McQueen never publicly spoke about what was really going on. In true McQueen fashion, he kept his feelings private, even though it was evident to everyone around him that something was wrong. Why did McQueen refuse to address the issue? Was it because he didn't want to admit to the vulnerability that came with working with someone he couldn't stand? Or was it because he didn't want to give the media the satisfaction of knowing how much this co-star was getting under his skin? As time passed, the tension between McQueen and his co-star didn't just fade away. It became a defining feature of their relationship, one that everyone could feel but no one could fully understand. It was a complicated situation, one that wasn't just about ego or personal issues, it was about something deeper. McQueen wasn't just upset about his co-star's behavior, he was disappointed by it. In a way, he was angry at himself for allowing the situation to get to such a point. Despite the tension, McQueen was still able to deliver incredible performances. His ability to focus on the work, despite his personal issues with his co-star, was a testament to his professionalism. However, the longer this conflict dragged on, the more it took a toll on him. He was a man who prided himself on being in control, and yet, this situation was one that he couldn't seem to resolve. It left him frustrated, angry, and at times, emotionally drained. It was a reminder that even the biggest stars aren't immune to the challenges of dealing with difficult people. The mystery surrounding McQueen's relationship with this co-star remains unsolved to this day. No one knows exactly what happened between them, but the stories of their tension continue to capture the imagination of those who study McQueen's life. The question still lingers: why did McQueen feel so strongly about this actor? What was it that made their relationship so toxic? Was it a simple matter of incompatible personalities, or was there something deeper that drove McQueen to such frustration? In the end, the unresolved nature of McQueen's conflict with this co-star only adds to the intrigue surrounding his life. It's just one of the many stories that make McQueen a fascinating figure. He was a man of many layers, tough but vulnerable, confident but struggling with his own inner battles. His relationship with this co-star is just another example of how complicated and unpredictable Hollywood can be. The mystery of what really happened between McQueen and this actor will likely never be fully answered, but it will always be a part of his story. It's a reminder that even the most iconic stars have their struggles, and sometimes, the biggest challenges they face come from the people they work with.
There are some stories in Hollywood that leave everyone talking. Steve McQueen's life is filled with those types of stories. He wasn't just a talented actor, he was a man who lived a life full of highs and lows. One of the most interesting aspects of his career was his ability to build an incredible legacy, but also the personal struggles he faced behind the scenes. McQueen's relationships with other stars were often marked by tension, but none quite like his feud with this particular co-star. The mystery surrounding this relationship has continued to capture the imagination of fans and Hollywood insiders alike. For McQueen, Hollywood was never just about making movies. It was a world where power, control, and egos often clashed. And while he was one of the biggest stars in the world, that didn't mean everyone in the industry respected him or saw eye to eye with him. He had a reputation for being difficult, but there was something much deeper at play when it came to his relationship with this co-star. The tension between them wasn't just a result of personality differences, it was a deep-rooted problem that went beyond the surface. It was something that even McQueen's closest friends and colleagues couldn't fully understand. This wasn't just another case of a star having a minor conflict with a colleague. What made this particular situation so different was the way McQueen responded to it. Normally, McQueen was known for his calm and cool persona,
He was someone who could stay composed in the most stressful situations. But with this co-star, it was like a switch flipped. McQueen, usually the picture of self-control, began to show a side of himself that no one had seen before. His frustration grew to the point where it started to affect not just his work but his entire mood on set. It was clear that something was eating away at him, but no one could figure out exactly what. The more time McQueen spent with this co-star, the worse the situation became. It was as though every moment they spent together only deepened the divide between them. The tensions were not subtle. They were impossible to ignore. Anyone who was on set at the time could tell that there was something seriously wrong. McQueen, a man known for his ability to handle pressure, was showing signs of strain. His frustration was visible and his patience was wearing thin. So why was this one person able to get under his skin so deeply? Many people who worked with McQueen in his later years noticed that the tension with this co-star wasn't just about professional differences. McQueen was a man who took pride in his work and his craft, but with this person it felt personal. There was something about their behavior, their attitude, that pushed McQueen past his usual boundaries. He didn't just dislike this actor, he couldn't stand them. The animosity between them wasn't something that could be explained away by differences in acting styles or creative decisions. This was something deeper, something that had its roots in a more personal conflict. As the tension continued to build, it started to affect McQueen's performance. He was known for being a methodical and intense actor, someone who could immerse himself in a role with ease. But with this co-star, his focus seemed to waver. It was clear that the ongoing conflict was taking a toll on him. He had a lot of pride in his work, and for this constant tension to impact him so much showed just how deeply the issue ran. It wasn't just an actor's problem, it was becoming a personal crisis. McQueen was fighting not just on screen but off-screen as well, and it was slowly eating away at him. The question that lingered in everyone's mind was what happened? What caused this rift? Many assumed that it was simply a clash of personalities. After all, McQueen wasn't known for being the easiest person to work with. He had a big ego, and that often led to tension with those around him. But there was more to this particular situation than just that. There was a specific event, a moment that marked the breaking point. The tension didn't build overnight, it was the result of a series of small incidents that eventually led to an explosion of frustration. And yet no one really knew what happened during that pivotal moment that made McQueen so angry. There are several theories about what might have caused the situation to reach its boiling point. Some believe that McQueen's sense of control was challenged by this co-star. McQueen was a man who liked to be in charge, and when someone else came onto the set with a bigger personality or a more forceful attitude, it was bound to create conflict. But others believe it was more personal than that. Perhaps McQueen saw something in this actor that he didn't like, something that reminded him of his own flaws or insecurities. After all, Hollywood was a place filled with self-doubt and pressure, and it's possible that this co-star triggered something deep within McQueen's psyche. Whatever the cause, it was clear that McQueen's frustration was reaching a boiling point. As a man who rarely showed vulnerability, it was surprising to see how deeply the conflict with this co-star affected him. McQueen, known for his toughness, began to show cracks in his armor. He wasn't the type to let people see him struggle, but the presence of this particular actor seemed to push him to his breaking point. He couldn't hide it anymore. The tension was visible, and it was only a matter of time before it would spill over into something bigger. Despite the mounting tension, McQueen never openly discussed what was going on. He was a private man, and he didn't like to share his personal struggles with the world. Even though everyone around him could see that something was wrong, McQueen kept his emotions to himself. It was almost as if he wanted to maintain an air of mystery about the whole situation. After all, he was Steve McQueen, a man who had lived through countless challenges and had never shown weakness. To admit that he was struggling with a co-star would have been seen as a sign of vulnerability, and that was something McQueen was never willing to show. As the conflict with this co-star dragged on, the question remained, would McQueen ever be able to reconcile with this person, or was this feud destined to define their relationship forever? The truth is, we may never know what truly happened between them. It's one of the great unsolved mysteries of Hollywood. The tension between McQueen and his co-star will likely always be remembered as a defining moment in McQueen's career, a reminder that even the toughest stars can have their limits. This unresolved conflict only adds to the mystery of McQueen's life. He was a man of many contradictions, tough on the outside, but vulnerable on the inside. His career was filled with remarkable moments, but this feud with his co-star is one of the most intriguing chapters. It raises questions about the personal lives of celebrities and the challenges they face behind the scenes. While the public may have seen McQueen as the ultimate tough guy, those who worked with him knew that even the greatest stars are human, and sometimes their battles are fought off the screen. In Hollywood, everyone is trying to make a name for themselves. Some succeed, some struggle, but almost all of them face challenges along the way. Steve McQueen was no different. He became a Hollywood icon, known for his tough guy roles and his ability to steal the spotlight in any movie he was in. But even with all the fame and success, there were struggles McQueen faced that few ever saw. One of the biggest challenges in his life was his relationship with a co-star that went beyond just a simple feud. It was an ongoing battle, one that affected McQueen in ways that were difficult to explain. People who worked with McQueen during the height of his career often said that he had a certain magnetism. He was the kind of person who could command a room without saying a word. But behind that confident exterior was a man who often felt misunderstood and frustrated. McQueen was someone who believed in being in control, and when that control was challenged, it could lead to serious consequences. His relationship with this particular co-star tested that control in ways McQueen hadn't anticipated. The tension between McQueen and this co-star grew over time. At first it wasn't clear what was happening. It was easy to dismiss small arguments or disagreements as part of the normal Hollywood drama. But as time went on, it became clear that this wasn't just another typical conflict. The more McQueen worked with this actor, the more the frustration grew. It wasn't just about a difference of opinion or a clash of personalities, it was something deeper. Something that no one could easily explain. The interesting part about McQueen's struggle with this co-star was that even though it seemed like the conflict was about personality differences, there was an undercurrent of something else. Something more personal. McQueen, for all his fame and success, was still a man with insecurities. He had faced a lot of personal battles in his life, including growing up with a troubled past. He had worked hard to overcome those obstacles and make a name for himself in Hollywood. But this co-star seemed to bring up something from McQueen's past that he wasn't ready to deal with. It wasn't just that McQueen didn't like the actor. The truth was, McQueen had a deep dislike for this co-star. It wasn't about competition or jealousy, at least not in the way most people would think. It was something more complicated. There was a feeling McQueen had about this actor that went beyond simple rivalry. He couldn't explain it, and perhaps he didn't even want to. But it was there, and it grew stronger as they spent more time together. McQueen, a man known for his toughness and his ability to handle anything Hollywood threw at him, found himself unable to get past this personal conflict. What made this situation even more mysterious was the fact that McQueen was not a man who would easily admit to personal struggles. He had built a reputation as someone who was tough, who didn't show weakness. He was known for being a rebel, and for standing up for himself in any situation. But with this co-star, something changed. The more they worked together, the more McQueen's frustration began to show. It wasn't just in the way he acted on set, it was in his mood, his attitude, even in his performances. He was a professional, yes, but the strain of dealing with this co-star was starting to take its toll. It was clear that something had to give. The tension between McQueen and this actor reached a breaking point, but no one knew exactly what caused it. Was it something that had been building for a long time, or was there a specific moment when everything changed? It's hard to say. McQueen never spoke openly about what happened between him and this co-star, and those who were around him at the time could only guess at what had triggered the sudden shift. But one thing was certain: McQueen couldn't continue to work in this environment. His frustration was starting to affect his personal life, his career, and his health. As the days passed, it became clear that McQueen was feeling trapped. He didn't want to confront the issue directly, and he didn't want to let anyone know how much it was bothering him. Yet the tension was so thick that everyone could feel it. The crew, the other actors, even the directors, everyone knew something was off. McQueen, the man who had always been in control, was no longer in control of the situation. His personal feelings about this co-star were slowly eroding the professional distance he had always maintained. What made this situation even more complicated was McQueen's desire to maintain his public image. He had worked so hard to build a reputation as the ultimate tough guy, the actor who could do it all. Admitting that he was struggling with a co-star would have been seen as a weakness, and McQueen wasn't the kind of person who ever let his weaknesses show. So instead of confronting the issue directly, he buried his feelings, letting them simmer beneath the surface. But how long could McQueen keep up the facade? How long could he continue to ignore the growing tension and frustration that was taking a toll on him? The truth is, McQueen's battle with this co-star was one of the greatest challenges of his career. It wasn't just about acting or movies, it was about something much deeper. It was about McQueen's need for control, his personal insecurities, and his struggle to stay true to the image he had built over the years. In the end, the situation never really had a clear resolution. The tension between McQueen and this co-star remained unresolved, and the two men went their separate ways. McQueen's career continued to thrive, but the unresolved conflict with this actor would always be a part of his story. It was a chapter that remained largely untold, and its mystery only added to McQueen's complicated legacy. Perhaps, in a way, that was the true nature of McQueen's struggle. It wasn't just the battles he fought on screen or in his career, it was the personal battles he fought in silence, the ones that no one could fully understand. His conflict with this co-star was just one example of the many complexities of his life, a life filled with both triumph and struggle, success and pain. What remains most fascinating about McQueen's life is how the public saw him compared to who he really was. To the world, he was a tough guy, a man who could face any challenge head-on. But to those who worked closely with him, it was clear that there was more to McQueen than met the eye. The tension with his co-star was just one example of the many personal struggles McQueen dealt with throughout his life. It was a reminder that even the strongest stars have their own demons to fight, and sometimes, those battles remain hidden from the world.